Danielle McLaughlin was born on February 4, 1989 in Glasgow, Scotland's largest city. At the time held a population of over 580,000 residents. She was the daughter of an Irish mother and a Scottish father. Her parents, Andrea Brannigan and Edward Donnelly, were both teenagers when they first met. Andrea was 17 years old when she became pregnant, while Edward was only 15. At the time, Andrea was staying in Glasgow temporarily. Upon discovering the pregnancy, she made the personal decision not to inform Edward. While the specific reasons for this choice remain undisclosed in public records, it is widely understood that the complexities and fears surrounding their young age played a significant role in her decision-making process. In fact, Edward Donnelly would only learn of Danielle's existence in 2013, when she was already 24 years old. Shortly after Danielle's birth, Andrea decided to return to her hometown of Buncrana, located in County Donegal, Ireland. Sources indicate she sought the proximity and stability of her family, a necessary support system for a young single mother at the time. As a result, Danielle spent her formative years growing up in Buncrana, a picturesque coastal town on the Irish shore. Family members described Danielle as a vibrant and joyful girl who possessed a natural curiosity for exploring new environments. In the years following their return to Ireland, her mother, Andrea, met and married John Brannigan. At the time, John worked in the construction industry and was widely regarded as a hard-working and devoted man. He stepped into the role of the father figure Danielle had never known, and the two developed a profound and positive bond. Over the following years, Andrea and John had 5 daughters: Jolene, Sean, Treginach, Skye, and Ari Rose. But the family faced a heartbreaking tragedy when little Ari Rose passed away at only 10 weeks old due to sudden infant death syndrome. As you can imagine, the family home was always full of life and very busy with all those kids growing up together. Danielle really took her role as the oldest sister to heart. She was very protective and was always looking out for her younger sisters and helping them out. As a teenager, Danielle fell in love with the arts, especially dancing and creative writing. It was around this time that she started to get really curious about different cultures. She had this huge desire to see the world and experience life beyond her own borders. Around 2006, when she was 17, Danielle moved to Liverpool, England, all by herself. She went there to study at Liverpool John Moores University, taking courses in criminology, psychology, and sociology. This move was really the start of her independent life, which fit perfectly with her adventurous personality and that huge itch she had to see the world. While at university, Danielle made a ton of friends and met people from all over the place. To help pay the bills, she started working at a local bar in the city called the Pump House. Even with her busy life there, she'd head back to Ireland to visit her family whenever she could. She didn't want to miss a single family event, like her sister's birthdays. By 2010, Danielle graduated with her degree. After graduation, she decided to stick around in Liverpool for a bit longer. She kept her job at the Pump House and tried to gain some professional experience before she started traveling more frequently. Like I mentioned before, Danielle's dream was to travel the world and explore other cultures. She managed to take a few trips around that time, and she described them as incredible, literally a dream come true for her. Later on, in 2013, when Danielle was 24, something big happened. Edward Donnelly found out he was her father. Some sources say Danielle's maternal relatives were the ones who told him. Other sources say it was mutual friends of Andrea and Edward who spilled the beans. Either way, as soon as Edward found out he had a daughter, he wanted to meet her. When they finally met, the connection was instant. Edward didn't just want to be in her life, he wanted to make it official. For 24 years, Danielle's birth certificate had a blank space where a father's name should be, and Edward was determined to fix that. They navigated the legal paperwork together, a process that did more than just link them on paper. It solidified her identity, reinforcing her dual British and Irish citizenship. For Danielle, it wasn't just about bureaucracy. It was about finally having a complete history before she set off on her next big adventure. In the following years, Danielle traveled even more, visiting several countries where she volunteered to teach English and art to kids. But in 2015, John Brannigan, the man who raised Danielle, got very sick. Because of that, she decided to head back to Buncrana, Ireland, to support her family through such a tough time. John was suffering from asbestosis, a serious lung disease caused by breathing in asbestos dust for years while working in construction. At that time, asbestos was widely used on construction sites, and unfortunately, this exposure caused him serious health problems over time. By November of that same year, John's condition got worse, and he passed away. Losing him was devastating for Danielle, who saw him as her real father, and it was a huge blow to the whole family. They were already going through so much, especially since they had lost one of Danielle's baby sisters years before, something that had deeply affected John. Danielle decided to stay in Buncrana for a few months until things settled down a bit. Then, in 2016, Danielle took her very first trip to India. She went as a backpacker, focusing on volunteer work and really diving into the culture. During that trip, she volunteered at an orphanage in Kolkata in eastern India. Her days were filled with helping kids learn English, setting up art projects, and teaching dance. All the things she had loved doing since she was a little girl. Still in 2016, Danielle traveled to the state of Goa in southwest India, a place famous for its beautiful beaches and tons of tourists. While in Canacona, a coastal town in South Goa, she met a 24-year-old local guy named Vikat Bhagat. They added each other on Facebook and swapped messages every once in a while after they met. Danielle explored the whole area, making friends with both locals and other travelers, and she absolutely fell in love with places like Palolem Beach. That part of the trip made her feel right at home in India, and it was a big reason why she decided to go back the following year. At the end of 2016, Danielle returned to Buncrana. She couldn't stop talking about India to her friends and family, describing it as a place that could help her spiritually reset. That experience motivated her to plan a second trip to become a certified yoga teacher, with the idea of moving to Canada after that. But after her maternal grandfather passed away in November, she stayed in Ireland for Christmas and to celebrate her birthday on February 4th, 2017. After her maternal grandfather passed away in November, she remained in Ireland for Christmas and her birthday on February 4th. She then stopped in Liverpool to see friends before returning to India on February 22nd. Little did they know, that would be the very last time Danielle's family and friends would ever see her alive. The plan was to stay in India for just a few months, take some yoga courses to become a teacher, and then think about moving to Canada. Danielle was traveling on her British passport and arrived with an Australian friend. Almost the second she landed, she posted a message on Facebook thanking her family and friends and announcing her new adventure. At first, she stayed in North Goa, specifically in Arambol, a village famous for its yoga centers. She and her Australian friend rented a simple place and spent their time exploring. From the moment she arrived, Danielle was constantly texting her mom, letting her know she was safe and doing well. After a few days in Arambol, Danielle and her friend decided to head to South Goa, to a village called Canacona. Once they got there, they met up with a group of friends, including another friend from England. The two of them stayed in a beach hut at Palolem Beach. And they didn't just head to South Goa by chance, they went specifically for Holi, or as most of us know it, the Festival of Colors. Holi is one of the most famous celebrations in India. It marks the arrival of spring, the victory of good over evil, and the divine love between Krishna and Radha. In Goa, the festival has a unique twist. It blends Hindu traditions with a beach vibe, electronic music, DJs, and international parties. The festival lasts for several days in March, with parades, dancing, and bonfires. The beaches of Palolem and Anjuna become a blur of colored powder and water, a chaotic celebration before the atmosphere changed. Goa is already one of the most popular tourist spots in India, but during Holi, the crowds grow exponentially. People from all over the world head there for this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Because of all that tourism, Goa, even though it's India's smallest state, is actually the second richest. It's a beautiful region with a great climate that people just love. Danielle and her Australian friend were excited for the festival. On March 13, 2017, Danielle joined the Holi celebrations near Palolem Beach, specifically at a resort called Green Park. Witnesses said she looked incredibly happy, laughing, dancing, and throwing colored powder with other tourists and locals. She was seen all over the party, always hanging out in a group. People also mentioned that she had a few drinks with friends, but there were no reports of her being overly intoxicated or acting recklessly. Then, around 9 or 10 p.m., Danielle told her Australian friend she was heading off and that she'd see her the next day. That was when Danielle left the group and headed off into the unknown. The next morning, around 7:30 a.m., a local farmer was taking his usual route to his fields in a rural area of Canacona, near Devbag Beach. He was walking down a narrow dirt path through a field of tall grass, only about 100 feet from the main road. At first, he just saw what looked like a pile of abandoned clothes. That's actually pretty common after festivals, since tourists sometimes leave things behind. But as he got closer, it hit him. It wasn't clothes. It was the body of a woman. She was in a vulnerable state. and she had suffered extreme physical trauma that made identification nearly impossible. Realizing how serious the situation was, the farmer ran to a nearby village, screaming for help and alerting the residents. Some locals rushed to the scene while others called the local police. The police arrived just a few minutes later. The first officers on the scene roped off the area and started their initial investigation. Even with the severe injuries to her face, they could tell right away that she was a foreigner, with fair skin and features that were still recognizable. You could still see bits of colored powder from the festival, red, green, and pink, in her hair and on parts of her body. This was a huge clue because it immediately linked the case to the festival from the night before. It was a starting point for the investigation that would turn out to be crucial. Once the investigators and forensics team arrived, they photographed the scene from every angle. They also documented footprints and tire marks from what looked like a scooter. The team collected soil samples and fabric fibers from the scene. But there was a problem. The victim didn't have any personal belongings, no ID, no phone, and that made it really hard to identify her at first. Word spread fast through the local community and the tourists in Palalem that a body, likely a tourist, had been found. Just a few hours earlier, Danielle's Australian friend, who was sharing the beach hut with her, had already gone to the police station to report her missing. Danielle hadn't come back to the hut like they planned, and she hadn't called to say she'd be out longer. The friend tried calling, but Danielle's phone was turned off. That's when she got worried and went to the police. It didn't take long for the authorities to start connecting the dots, as the description the friend gave matched the body they had just found. However, as I mentioned, due to the extent of the injuries, standard facial recognition was impossible. Later, they were able to make a preliminary identification based on her skin color, weight, height, and hair. But the clincher for the identification was a tattoo Danielle had on one of her legs with the phrase, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery." Danielle's mother found out what happened through friends who lived there in Buncrana. These friends had seen the first reports about the crime on social media and rushed to the family's house just to see if it was actually true. Up until that second, no one in the family had any idea about the tragedy, so you can imagine it was an absolute shock for them. The news that a foreign tourist had been found dead in Goa started spreading like wildfire among everyone who knew Danielle. Andrea, her mom, described that moment as the worst day of her entire life. She ran out of her house in total desperation, just asking over and over if Danielle was really dead. At first, she thought it had to be a mistake because Danielle's last message from just the day before said she was safe, happy, and having a great time at the festival with her friends. But unfortunately, the news was real. Danielle was gone, and now the Indian authorities had to find out who was responsible. Danielle McLaughlin's body went through 2 autopsies. The first one was in Goa, India, and the second one happened in Ireland after her body was sent back home. But let's focus on the first autopsy for now and keep following the investigation in order. That first autopsy was done by 3 doctors at the Goa Medical College and Hospital in Bambalim. The whole thing was recorded on video, which is actually a rule from the Indian Supreme Court for cases like this. The medical report detailed extensive trauma to her upper body, suggesting a deliberate attempt by the perpetrator to obscure her identity. She had been hit several times. The authorities believe the attacker used various blunt and sharp objects found at the scene. Among the evidence collected for forensic analysis were a large stone and fragments of a glass bottle, which investigators believe were used during the encounter. Danielle also had signs that she fought back, showing clear defensive wounds on her body. The examination also confirmed she had suffered a heinous personal assault, so critical forensic samples were collected and sent off to the Central Forensic Lab for testing. The official cause of death was listed as asphyxiation due to external pressure, along with severe trauma from the impacts. At the spot where Danielle was found, the police picked up a lot of evidence: footprints, soil samples, fabric fibers, and, this part is crucial, fresh tire tracks from a scooter at the edge of the field. While they were searching the area, the police found a scooter with important forensic traces abandoned near a main road. When the police checked, they noticed that the tire tracks found where Danielle's body was were a perfect match for the tires on that abandoned scooter. They even found the same wear and tear from use, like those little nicks and cuts in the rubber that happen over time. So the officers ran the vehicle's registration through the system, and it came back in the name of Vikat Bhagat, a 24-year-old guy from Kanakona. Now, just to refresh your memory, Vikat Bhagat was the guy Danielle met during her first trip to India back in 2016. Like I mentioned before, they had added each other on Facebook and would swap messages every now and then. To everyone else, Vikat seemed like a quiet, friendly, and helpful guy. He was always offering rides and helping tourists find a place to stay. But according to the Indian authorities, when he was younger, Vikat had actually been apprehended several times for illegal activities involving tourists. The authorities also said he acted like a tour guide, but he didn't have any official license for it. He was basically operating under the radar, and the tourists had no idea. This kind of thing is actually very common in places that get a lot of travelers. People pretend to be guides just to make some money. The real problem is when these people have bad intentions and take advantage of the fact that tourists don't know their way around to target them for theft or worse. It's something the authorities try to keep an eye on as much as they can, but with so many people coming and going, it's really hard to catch everyone. After talking to several people who were at the festival, including some tourists who knew Danielle, the police found out that around 10 p.m. Danielle left the party with a man on a scooter. The description of this man, given to the authorities by these witnesses, matched Vikat Bhagat perfectly. Investigators then analyzed security camera footage from a street in Canacona, captured on the night of March 13th, around 10 p.m. The footage showed Danielle walking calmly with Vikat, still covered in the colored powder from the festival. That was the last time she was seen alive, and it confirmed they left together toward a more secluded area. Based on the scooter's registration, the security footage in Canacona, and the initial witness statements, the police were able to track down Vikat Bhagat nearby. He was arrested without putting up a fight. This arrest happened less than 24 hours after the crime. When he was interrogated, Vikat initially admitted his involvement, claiming it was an accident during an argument. He even mentioned that other people might have been involved, but he changed that story later on. Vikat also showed visible marks of a struggle, confirming that Danielle had bravely fought back during the encounter. During a search at his house, the police found clothes with forensic traces that were tested and came back as a positive match for Danielle's DNA. Also, near his home, they found a backpack with Danielle's belongings, including items containing forensic evidence. The traces found on the scooter were also tested, and it was another positive match for Danielle's DNA. After his arrest, Vikat was formally charged for the crime against Danielle McLaughlin. The next day, the police went public with his arrest and announced that the case was pretty much solved. Vikat was taken before a judge, who ordered him to be held in judicial custody until the investigations were finished. Even with Vikat behind bars, the investigation kept going to see if he acted alone or if he had any accomplices. A taxi driver who had taken Danielle to the festival was even detained, but he was released shortly after when his alibi was confirmed. New witnesses were interviewed, but they all said they only saw Vikat with Danielle that night. There were no eyewitnesses who could confirm anyone else was with her. Later, the DNA results came back as a match only for Vikat, confirming that he had acted alone in the crime. The authorities said that Vikat lured Danielle away that night by telling her he could show her a better and cheaper place to stay. Since they already knew each other from her first trip to India in 2016, Danielle trusted him. Vikat betrayed that trust, leading her to a remote location to execute his plan and commit the tragic acts that followed. Afterward, Vikat left the scene taking a backpack with Danielle's things. His plan was to sell some of her belongings, like her phone. He abandoned the scooter with the intention of burning it later to destroy any evidence, but for some reason, he either gave up on the idea or just ran out of time because the police caught him so quickly. After Danielle's body was repatriated to Ireland, she underwent a second autopsy, as I mentioned before. This second examination fully confirmed everything the first autopsy in India had found: extensive trauma, asphyxiation due to external pressure, and signs of a heinous personal assault. There were no major differences between the two reports. The results were used to support the court case in India and for the official inquest in Ireland. At the end of March 2017, after a painful 2-week wait, the family was finally able to hold Danielle's funeral. The service took place at the family home in Bunkrana and was attended by countless people whose lives Danielle had touched. The family made a special request for no one to wear black. They wanted to celebrate Danielle's life with bright, happy colors instead. After the funeral, Danielle was buried in a cemetery next to the Cockhill Church, right beside her maternal grandparents, in a spot overlooking the sea she loved so much as a child. The family received final condolences as the community said goodbye. Then, in May 2017, Vikat sent a 30-page letter to his sister, taking back his earlier statements and claiming he only cooperated because he felt pressured by the authorities, even alleging he had been subjected to extreme physical duress. In the letter, he also claimed the crime was actually committed by 3 other individuals who were part of a group. He said he tried to help Danielle, but because he had a bad shoulder from a previous surgery, he couldn't do anything to stop them. Vikat's letter didn't change a thing. The court didn't buy his story because all the forensic evidence pointed to a single person being responsible, and everything led straight to him. Later, the police investigation was finalized with a 374-page report filled with witness statements and cataloged evidence that proved Vikat Bhagat was the one. In April 2018, Vikat's first trial began, and he pleaded not guilty. But due to the global health crisis of 2019 and a lot of bureaucratic issues, the rest of the trial was delayed more than 250 times. During all those years, he remained in preventive detention. His defense team even tried to ask for bail, but it was denied. Vikat Bhagat's trial only finally resumed in February 2025. In the end, he was found guilty by the District and Sessions Court in South Goa, which completely rejected his claims about a gang being involved. Vikat received 2 life sentences, one for the loss of Danielle's life and another for the grave personal assault he committed against her. The prosecutors sought the maximum capital punishment, but the judge denied it. Today, Vikat Bhagat is serving his sentence in a prison in Goa, where he will spend the rest of his life. Danielle McLaughlin's case is very similar to another one I've covered here on the channel some time ago, the case of Scarlett Keeling. Like Danielle, Scarlett was British and was also attacked in Goa. I'm going to leave the link to that video in the pinned comment in case you want to check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.